Today's video was sponsored by Pop Culture Zone Pressing Services. If you need your comic books pressed, I personally vouch for Pop Culture Zone as being one of the best professional companies in the game, offering hands down the lowest prices out there. Services start at only $9.99, and every order placed will receive free fast track turnaround times. Even though I press comics for my personal collection, whenever I need a professional press for my key comics, I send them off to Pop Culture Zone, and every single book that I've received back, every single one, has had results that have exceeded my expectations, and I am sure that they will exceed your expectations as well. Make sure you go check the link in the description below to head over to their website, popculturezone.com, for complete details on services and how to begin your order.
What is going on, everyone? Chris with Journals, Comics, and Pop Culture. Today's video, we're going to ask the question, is CGC purposefully manipulating the market by monitoring the amount of 9.8 grades that they dish out? We are going to get into this, but first, if you aren't subscribed to the channel, please take some time to do so. I want to congratulate Mickey Vasquez for winning the Alpha Flight #1. Mickey, congratulations to you. Please contact me. You can private message me on Instagram at journos_comics, or you can email me at captainjournocomics@gmail.com. And today, folks, it is A1 Wednesday, so of course a big shout out to A1 Comics. If you are not following them on social media, their information is below. Remember, they have live IG sales every Wednesday and Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. They go for 3 hours. Their live sales are massive and awesome, guys, even if you're just in there hanging out. They have live sales on Whatnot, of course, and they are also on Twitch, and their website information is below as well. All right, so I discussed this issue to an extent with fellow YouTuber Swagglehouse Comics a few months back when we both hashed out our concerns with the 9.8 grade. And this isn't just from CGC. We can include every grading company in there. We talked about how on any given day, many 9.8s could come back a 9.6 depending on the grader, depending on the mood of the grader, and vice versa. A book that gets a 9.6 one day could come back a 9.8 the other day, just depending on the mood of the grader. Or do they have a headache that day? Or did they propose to their wife and she said yes the day before and they're happy giving out, 9.8s to books that might have been 9.4 or 9.6 on another day. All these different elements that factor into the question of how subjective are these grades. Well, I was just recently going back and reading comments in that video, and I got a lot of people bringing up the fact that there are people out there that think that CGC actually, in a sense, is conscious of how many 9.8s they assign per book. So, for example, if we are talking about, say, a UF4, Ultimate Fallout 4, first appearance of Miles Morales, maybe through the process, and I don't know how they would do this. I don't know if they have a supervisor monitoring them, or if they have notes that say, oh, well, we've given out X amount of 9.8s in UF4, so today, no 9.8s, right? Like, if it's close to a 9.8, just give it a 9.6. Is something like this happening? Well, let me add some context before I answer that question. It is very true that the scarcity of, or even the rarity, should I say, and those can correlate here, of a 9.8 is obviously depending on how many 9.8s have been graded by CGC or CBCS and that are out there on the census or on the market. Now, there's two ways to look at it. Supply and demand that affects value works in terms of what is available on the market at any given time. So, for example, if there's 3,500 9.8 UF4s out there, but there's only 300 on the market at any given time, and the demand for that book at any given time is more than 300 people, the book is scarce on the market because the demand is higher than supply, and it's going to keep driving that price up. Because remember, just because there's 3,500 books graded on the census doesn't mean they're all on the market for sale. Many of them are sitting in people's personal collections, and that's where they're staying, right? Many of them shipped out from a collection onto the market and vice versa. But 3,500 that exist is still a very, very small percentage of the 71,000 print run that exist. So in comparison, regardless of how many are on the market or not, they are still technically a bit more rare and scarce than the total amount of books printed. Now, here's the thing though, this is a modern book. There could be potentially 20,000 9.8s sitting out there, maybe. And they're just not graded yet. Nobody's sent them into CGC or any of the grading companies. So if everyone decided to send in their 9.8 potential candidates to CGC, and a few months from now we have 20,000 on the market, it could drop that price of that 9.8 because there could be so many 9.8s in existence and on the market, and now the supply is way, way surpassing demand. So what does that do? That drops the value. Now, how does this correlate to me getting to this question that we want answered? Is CGC purposefully limiting the amount of 9.8s that they are assigning? Again, let's take a hypothetical. If UF4, say they get in a matter of a week, and again, I'm just throwing random numbers out there, folks. Say CGC gets 100 books of UF4s that are 9.8 candidates. They have the potential. Who am I to say that CGC doesn't take them and say, all right, guys, we are, for all 9.8 potential candidates, we are assigning only 40% of them 9.8 grades. So that means it's really not, the graders aren't sitting there and saying, this really is a 9.6, this really is a 9.8. They're taking all those 100 books and they're saying, all of these could definitely be 9.8s, but you know what? 60 of them are going to be 9.6s and 40 of them are going to be 9.8s, because we have to be conscientious and we have to dictate the influx of these books on the secondary market once they're graded and slabbed and put up for sale. Because what is 100 new 9.8s on the market next to 40%? The control of scarcity. If you flood 100 9.8s on the market, it's going to drive up that supply a lot more than just doing 40, and it could devalue that book in a 9.8. So again, I'm not saying if CGC is doing this, but do you see what I'm saying and why people are bringing this up and asking this question? Now you can ask yourself, well, what is CGC like? They're not selling books on the secondary market, so why do they care? Why do they care what a 9.8 sells for? Well, if 9.8s start decreasing in value because the supply is just growing and growing at a higher rate than demand, that can turn people away from sending in their books hoping to get those 9.8 grades. It could do that. It could. So that could be a reason why CGC, wants to be conscious. It's kind of like the reverse opposite of making quota, right? They don't want to make quota. They want to hit under quota, so to say. And if CGC or even CBCS or any of these companies are doing this absolutely is a form of market manipulation, because their assigned grades are not based, we always talk about subjectivity, but they're not even based on the subjective nature of what they think the grade might be. It's simply based on numbers in the control of the amount on the market, the control of the supply on the market. That right there is pure and simply market manipulation. And for those that watch my channel, you guys know me. I don't talk about market manipulation. I don't like to use that word unless I need to. Now again, I'm not accusing anybody CGC or anyone of doing this. We're just posing the question and we're putting all the variables out there. It would be a form of market manipulation. And it once again would be something that discredited the validity of the grade in the first place. There is already such a small margin of error to where many, many times those that have even studied grading to a T, and I've done a lot of studying myself and I'm very confident in my grading ability, there are many 9.6s where I say, this could have been a 9.8. There are 9.6s out there where there's a noticeable defect and you're like, yeah, this book is a 9.6. It wouldn't make a 9.8, but there's so many out there that, again, on a good day, a 9.6 could be a 9.8. On a bad day, a 9.8 could be a 9.6. So let's end the video on this note. What's my opinion? I sat here and played devil's advocate. We brought up factors of how this could be happening and what it means to the industry, what it would mean to supply and demand. And I think it would completely discredit CGC or any company. Do I think that they're doing this? I honestly do not think that they have a conscious or systematic agenda to control 9.8s. I don't. And the number one reason, well, there's two reasons. The number one is simply because if this got out, it would completely discredit their grading process even further. There's already folks that don't trust it or that think the subjective nature of it is too widely margined. I don't see that happening. I don't see them doing this to essentially come back to hurt their brand and their business culture. Another thing is this, why folks think that a flooding of the market of 9.8s would somehow, now it could devalue the grade of the 9.8s. That's true. If those 100 books came in and they all could have been 9.8s, but CGC gave 50 or 60 of them 9.6s, that can essentially help that 9.8 fair market value stay up. But if they all got 9.8s and it started, allowing supply to creep past demand and the price started to dipping, that I overall, the bigger picture, I don't think it would hurt CGC. It's not going to stop people from sending in books to CGC. It's not. It would change the perception of what we value in the market, though. And there could just be a bigger demand for graded comics, no matter if they're 9.6 or 9.8. I don't think it would stop the demand of graded comics on the secondary market. I think it would just narrow the price differential between a 9.6 and a 9.8. So that's another reason why I don't think they're doing it. One thing that I do think they could be doing is this, though. I think they are trained to say, if you see a book that you think is a 9.8, but you have any doubt in your mind that maybe I'm thinking it's a 9.8, and it's just hitting a 9.8, be safe and give it a 9.6. I do think that is more probable of what might happen. I think that when a lot of them are sitting there grading and they say, this definitely could be a 9.8, but I'm just kind of on the fence, they're going to go with the 9.6 instead. But on the flip side of that, and I'm playing devil's advocate to my own point here, how many 9.8s have we seen with multiple color-breaking spine ticks? How do I need to pull out my Amazing Spider-Man 362 for you guys that came back a 9.8 that should have been no higher than a 9.0? It had like at least 5 color-breaking spine ticks and a blended edge, a blended corner. And it came back a 9.8. So again, we just never know, folks. We don't know. I don't think that that there's this market manipulation going on to where they're really dictating and controlling the influx of 9.8s. I do think that they could be conservative more than liberal when they're on the fence. But at the end of the day, I still think that their, wide margin of error is even more problematic than anything. So those are my thoughts on this topic of discussion today, folks. I want to let all of you share your thoughts below because I want to hear it. I want to hear what you guys have to say.